Hello and welcome to this week's Straight Talking Sport. I'm your host Kieran Pick. Joining me today is John Winchester.
Hi there.
Grant Elliott.
Hello.
Ryan Hodge.
You right?
And this week we'll be discussing the Champions League results, specifically the racism row brewing up again, the Indian Grand Prix, as doubts have been cast whether it will go ahead this weekend, Ian Holloway leaving Crystal Palace, and Chris Robshaw retaining the captaincy for the England rugby team. So, we'll start off with the Man City defeating CSKA Moscow last night 2-1. It's been overshadowed by Yaya Toure coming out and saying he was subject to monkey chants. What should FIFA do to stop this happening again? John.
Well, they did come out and say that there's going to be a partial ban if they're found, if a club is found to be guilty of fans doing that. And if it's a repeat offender, then a full closure to their stadium and a fine. Whether this is going to put people off, though, they're yet to really dish one out, I think. I don't know any clubs that have been punished yet. But I think the sooner that happens and the sooner that the fans realise that it's affecting them going to stadiums, the better, really. I don't think giving warnings out or anything is going to affect how people view the game, but actual punishment, not being able to watch your team play is a good idea. Whether until they do that, then I don't think anything's going to change, and it's a sad thing, really.
Grant?
It's not the first time it's happened in Russia. Samuel Eto'o had them chants shouted at him, unfortunately, when he played for Angie.
Roberto Carlos as well.
Roberto Carlos had it as well, same club as well, Angie. I think it's the first time I've heard anything with CSKA Moscow, but it does seem to happen a lot in Russia, because I think Chris Samba had it as well before he came back to the Premier League. I'm not sure what UEFA would do. I mean, there was talk that Sepp Blatter also said after what happened in the summer when AC Milan had a friendly, I can't remember who it was against, but Kevin Prince Boateng, it was in Italy, but he was getting racial chants at him. Apart from maybe giving a ban to fans at stadiums, but how are they going to pick it out? How are they going to pick out the select few out of thousands in one stand? I think it's just a group of idiotic people who are ruining football for everyone else.
Ryan, Russia are meant to host the World Cup in 2018. Do you think it's a punishment for their threat of removal if they don't fix this problem?
It's tough. Obviously, the planning and the process of winning the World Cup bid, and now obviously they've got a plan for 2018. It's already in motion. I don't think if racial incidents continue, I don't know whether removing the World Cup in 2018 from Russia, I don't know if that would be a good idea. Going back to what John was saying, I think games behind closed doors, I think that's a minimum if a whole set of fans for a club is found to chant racial slurs. I don't think fines are any good because the wealthy club owners, they'll just pay them off, and the same things will keep happening over and over again. So at the minimum, games behind closed doors should be at the minimum punishment. I don't think fines in terms of points in the group stage of the Champions League, I don't know if that's a suitable punishment, because it's punishing the club rather than the fans, because it's not the club's fault. But there has been, as Grant mentioned, several problems with racial incidents in Russia. Obviously, FIFA wanted the World Cup to go to a nation that's not hosted a major footballing event before. So it's going to be tough. I don't think, even if it got very, very bad and too severe, I still don't think FIFA would remove the World Cup from Russia. So
I think it would be a good punishment for them if they did remove it. But whether it's practical or not, we're only a few years away from it now. Whether they could move it in time, if racial abuse keeps happening, I don't know whether that would be practical or not. I don't think there'll be enough time.
Well, without trying to be too unbiased, there's a lot of countries that I reckon have got the right setup already in place to host a World Cup, such as England.
And Spain as well.
Yeah.
And Germany. There's a lot of countries out there who's got the stadium.
There are ways of doing it, but I'd imagine there's a lot of supporters who might be a little too eager and have started booking hotels and stuff and flights, because that will be where the practicality becomes difficult.
Well, with that, by the time you've given games behind closed doors for clubs that fans do that, and then you've got to have a whole debate about whether they should remove it. By the time that happens, that's going to be two or 3 years, I'd say. And by then, it'd be too late to change countries altogether.
They won't change it until at least after the World Cup next year in Brazil, because they'll obviously got to focus on Brazil first before they start thinking about Russia. So, yeah, like John said, it might not happen. They might not think about it until 2015, 2016. They may decide, hang on a minute, it's too late. Because if it does get taken away, who do they give it to? The second people who got the second most votes. That's the fairest way you've got to do it. I can't remember who that was, but that's the fairest way you can do it.
I know England were in the bidding process. I can't remember. I think they got eliminated quite early, didn't they?
Yeah, we went out in the first round. We only got one vote.
But as Kieran, you mentioned, a country like England and France and Spain, they've got the facilities intact, and I don't know about how much budgeting will be needed, but they certainly have the stadia available to host a major footballing event.
Okay, thank you very much. The other English results in the Champions League this week: Man United beat Real Sociedad 1-0. Arsenal suffered a defeat to Dortmund 2-1, and Chelsea battered Schalke 3-0. Are all the English teams going to qualify from the group this year?
I think Arsenal had the toughest group without a doubt. I mean, they got Marseille, who obviously are one of the top teams in France. Dortmund, of course, one of the best teams in Germany, if not Europe. And they also got Napoli as well, with Rafa Benitez there, and they're improving every year. I still think Arsenal will qualify, though. I mean, I know it's the first game they've lost in, I think it's 12 games. First game they've lost since they lost against Aston Villa at the beginning of the season. But I think they'll do enough to qualify. Chelsea, pretty straightforward group. You would expect them to become winners. I know they lost against Basel in the first game, and that was a bit of a shock. But I'm pretty sure with Mourinho back, they'll storm the rest of the games. United, they've been a bit hit and miss. I mean, I know they've done all right. They've got 2 wins and a draw in the Champions League. They should get through their group, but it's whether or not their poor Premier League performances continue into midweek.
Okay. Ryan, do you think which English team do you think will go the furthest in this year's competition?
Before the competition started, I would have predicted the Premier League. I would have said Chelsea and Man City. Given that Chelsea have been a tad inconsistent in losing to Basel, who nobody expected that. I think City, they've not always been consistent when qualifying for the Champions League. It's tough. Arsenal, if they can win their group and avoid a potentially tricky tie in the round of 16, I think Arsenal have got. If they continue their early season form, they could progress fast. Quarters, semis, maybe final, maybe a bit beyond their reach. But
John, who, not just looking at English teams, do you think there'll be some kind of underdog that might surprise the rest of the competition?
I'm not sure about underdog, but I'm just not seeing an English team in the final, maybe even not semi-finals, because you got Barcelona, they're probably playing some of the best football in a while. Bayern Munich, obviously defending champions, and you got Madrid, PSG, other teams like that are all coming on strong. Dortmund as well. They're all playing some of their best football in years. So whether an English team can get in there, I'm not sure, but it's probably one of the best competitions in terms of talent in quite a few years, I'd say.
Okay, we'll move on from football briefly to F1. This weekend is scheduled to be the Indian Grand Prix. However, breaking news today has been it's now put in doubt after a petition filed over unpaid taxes. We'll kind of head over to our F1 expert for this one, really. What do you know about the situation, John?
I'm not because it's only breaking news. I'm still sort of in the dark about it. Whether it'll go ahead is the main question. Personally, I think it will go ahead. I think it's too late. Like, it's the week before the race. Like, why are they bringing it up now? It's a petition, I know. Like, they may have just been getting it together as publicity builds up towards it. But I think it's too late in the calendar to move or cancel it, to be honest. And also the title will be decided if it does get cancelled. Vettel will win because he'll be 90 points ahead with only 75 to go. So I think there's too much at stake. I know he's won the title. Well, he hasn't yet, but it's basically just
when he wins it, yeah.
It's basically when now, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't see it not going ahead, to be honest.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add about F1?
I think it'd be ridiculous if it was cancelled.
Yeah.
You're 1 day away from practice, the first practice session. All the teams are located in India. It'd just be logistically a nightmare for it to. They wouldn't move it. It is impossible for it to move this weekend. It'd be cancelled. Logistically, it's not going to move. Whether it will be cancelled,
a day before practice, I can't see it cancelled.
No.
I don't think it's because of where they are that they've all travelled there. It's mainly, I think, because of it will have implications on the title race. Vettel will win it via forfeit, if you like. You know, there's only 3 races after this one, I think, and he's too far ahead to catch in 3 races. So it's just a bit unfair if they just gift Vettel the title in a way. I know he's going to win it and he deserves to win it this year, but in a way it's gifting it to him.
I think also you've got to look to next year. You've got Mexico, United States are getting another Grand Prix, Austria having a Grand Prix, and Russia, of course. How did I forget Russia? They're all getting Grand Prix, and as a result, India aren't going to be on the calendar next year. So if this one is cancelled, you've got to have a look at they're having it in 2015, but you've got to look at their relationship with F1, and if they can't hold it this year and they're not going to be on the calendar next year, and with the amount of races that are on it nowadays, their future may be seriously in doubt.
Okay, moving on to a new feature that has been forced upon me.
Discussed, amicably discussed.
Yeah, my surname's Pick, so the guys decided that there should be a feature called Kieran's Pick of the Week. This week, I'm looking at the World Series that has started between the Boston Red Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals. It's best of 7 series, that's the season ender, if you like. Last night, the Boston Red Sox defeated the Cardinals 8-1, and for any sports fans, baseball is a great sport to watch, for just from a neutral point of view. And if you can keep an eye on that this weekend, it is really exciting. Okay, back to football. Ian Holloway's left Crystal Palace by mutual consent. Tony Pulis rumoured to take over. Do you think he's the right man to keep Palace up?
I'm undecided.
Yeah, me too. I think Holloway tried to employ a free-flowing attacking style of football. In Tony Pulis, you look at what he did at Stoke, it's just completely opposite.
It works. It worked at Stoke.
It grinds results out, but Crystal Palace don't have a big, bulky centre forward. They're defensively unstable. They leak goals. Presumably if Pulis was to come in as manager, that he'd probably help that situation out.
Yeah.
But they got Danny Gabardon in defence. I don't think the players they have would work in a defensive-minded system.
Well, do you think Palace might see this as not necessarily a long-term thing? Maybe get Pulis to keep them up, and then say do what Stoke did, and then get Mark Hughes or a manager of a next level up. Do you think that could work?
I'm not sure. Well, like Ryan said, Holloway's trying to play free-flowing football, just like he did at Blackpool when they was in the Premier League. I mean, Blackpool was unlucky. I think every neutral fan enjoyed watching Blackpool when they was in the league. Palace have got a Chamak, obviously, big, strong centre-half up front, but apart from him, and there's a couple of players, but I can't see him playing the same way as Stoke. Tony Pulis isn't a one-trick pony. I don't think you can say that. You know, he is a smart guy, and he'll have other strategies rather than just playing 6 foot tall players and throwing the ball up in the air.
He's never been relegated as a manager as well.
That's a good stat. Whether or not it's too late, well, it's not too late. I mean, we're only a couple of months into the season, but watching Palace lose to Fulham 4-1 on Monday night, it was, I think. Yeah, it was Monday night, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they perform like that, those are the type of games they need to get points.
Okay. So who else do we think could take over the reins at Crystal Palace and do a good job?
I think Chris Coleman has been mentioned, former Palace defender, and there's been a bit of unrest with his position at Wales. I can't remember what the latest situation was, whether he said he'll stay on. I think he might have, but if there's a bit of unrest there, I don't think it would be unwise for Palace to try and approach him. Obviously, he had a good few years whilst he was Premier League manager at Fulham. Hasn't managed a Premier League club since, but if he's unhappy perhaps at Wales, and managing a former club could suit him to the ground.
It's not that he's unhappy at Wales, I don't think. I think it's just he hasn't signed a contract yet. I don't think the Welsh FA's even offered him a deal yet. I think they're a bit undecided because obviously his deal runs out at the end of the World Cup qualifying campaign that's just finished. I think they're just at the moment assessing whether or not the last few games, because they pulled off a few good results towards the end, the last couple of games, and they think that might have saved Coleman's job. Another name that's been thrown around is Di Matteo for the Palace job, but I think he's a bit too, I want to say big, but he's won the Champions League with Chelsea.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did a good job at West Brom.
I think he could hold out for a job that's bigger than that in a different.
Such as who?
I think he could go anywhere in the world, manage like a top team in the country. I mean, he could go to Italy, France, Spain. I think he could do a good job anywhere he goes at a big club. I know his name was mentioned for the Napoli job. Obviously, Benitez got it. I mean, that's the sort of quality club that I think he's capable of, and we all know he's capable of after winning the Champions League with Chelsea. But I don't think I can't see him going to Palace.
Well, the thing is, you got Tony Pulis is the main man that's been banded round. I don't think there's anyone in terms of getting out of a relegation scrap that's better than him that's available. Palace have obviously they've said that they want him because of he hasn't been relegated before. Obviously, meaning that they're gonna try and stay in the Premier League. Whether they do that or not is another question. But as a long-term prospect, he could be the right man.
I think it's good that they're getting someone with Premier League experience. I mean, I know Sunderland just appointed Poyet, and he has had no Premier League experience, and some people are saying that's a gamble. But people are throwing Pulis' name around. They're not saying it's a gamble.
I think Pulis would have been a wiser move to appoint at Sunderland, because they do lack a bit of fight, I think, which is what you need to get out of a relegation battle.
Well, Di Canio was a risk appointment at Sunderland at the time.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, another one. No Premier League experience.
No.
I mean, he got the job done in the end of last season, but that was it. He didn't do anything in the beginning of this one.
No.
Finally, we'll end on rugby. Chris Robshaw has retained the captaincy for the Autumn Internationals against Australia, Argentina and New Zealand. England's have kind of been on the rise last 18 months under Stuart Lancaster. Do any of you think we're in a position where we can start to challenge the Southern Hemisphere teams yet?
If you look at the Six Nations performance, 4 matches into the Six Nations, England were looking at a potential Grand Slam. In the end, they didn't even win the Six Nations Championship. They were destroyed by Wales in the final match. It's tough to say. I mean, obviously, it's been well known for a number of years that the Southern Hemisphere sides in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, they do have a somewhat of an upper class in which they can push on. Don't know whether England they could in another 18 months' time, perhaps looking towards I know it's a few years away, the 2015 World Cup, when they will have to face the Southern Hemisphere sides in more of a competitive atmosphere,
which we are hosting.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see this series. Obviously, the two Oceanian sides and Argentina, who aren't that bad a team, so it'll be interesting to see.
That wraps things up for this week's episode of Straight Talking Sport. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at the Kieran Pick, spelled Kyram. John, you are
at JohnWin51.
Grant, you are
at GDE93.
Ryan, and you are
at Ryan J. Hodge.
Please feel free to leave a comment, subscribe. You can contact us via email at straighttalkingsport@gmail.com. Next week, it will be a special Halloween feature hosted by John, which you can look forward to. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.